Why it's epidemic of bad marketers?
There's an epidemic of bad roofers.
As a coach, you selling drinks?
I'm probably getting a lot of trouble for this. Yeah, you're gonna get one of those political answers from me. Like if it was all about money, like if that's what you're asking me, if it's all about money and that's the only focus.
I think you are too nice.
Am I starting to shake in my boots a little? Like, do I have all my stuff covered and I don't have to pay anybody? They should go to jail for it. Seriously.
Jim Johnson. Are you relative to Dwayne Johnson, The Rock?
No, obviously.
Is it because he just endorsed Biden? No longer in the family, no longer associated?
I kind of stay away from the whole political thing. It's been so divisive and stuff, and try not to be that way if I can avoid it. I obviously have my own political opinions, but I kind of try to keep those to myself if I can.
Smart. Jim, you are one of the cleanest, good names in the industry, one of the good guys. I remember asking many friends back in the day, I didn't know who is who when I entered the industry. And every time I asked who Jim Johnson is, every time I got the same answer. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. No more, no less. He's a good guy. Jim is a good guy. What does it take to be a good guy in the roofing industry?
So, in all honesty, I wasn't always a good guy. I got background. I was tough. I was hard. I was didn't always do things the right way.
Okay, well, take me there. Like, so it was a time when you were a bad guy.
Yeah.
Take me back there.
Super competitive. Hate to lose. Not real smart about business. So we had some failures.
What's your background? How did you get in the roofing business?
Good question. My background is sales. I've always been in sales, pretty decent at it. My mom actually said that I came out of the womb selling her on I needed to eat right away. And so my family always has used that as like terminology to describe me to everybody else. Like I think my dad the other day said I could sell a drowning man water. And I didn't want to be perceived that way. It's not really my goal in life, although while it was beneficial at a certain time in my life, I don't see it as important anymore.
Did you work for yourself or for someone else in the roofing industry?
In the roofing industry, I work for somebody else. They're actually located here, American Building Contractors, if you've ever heard of those guys. That's where I started. I answered an ad that said $75,000 to be a home inspector. That's what it was. I was like, wow, 75 grand to be a home inspector, that doesn't seem too bad. Then I went in for an interview, found out what it really was.
Door knocking?
Sales? Yeah, sales. Yeah, it was sales. The concept that really clicked to me was like, all right, so here's the deal. The homeowner has to pay their deductible, they're gonna get all this work done. I went, like, who can't sell that? That's not sales. That's not sales at all.
Orders.
Yeah, sales is when you take money out of somebody's pocket for a service or a product that you provide. This is taking money out of somebody else's pocket to pay for that service or product for them. So really, it's only up to them to choose the right guy or not. And I went, this seems like almost too good to be true, a little too easy.
How much did you make that year? Did you make 75 or more?
I sold 108 jobs in the first 3 months.
180.
108.
108.
Yeah.
What did it pocket you?
About 108,000. It was about $1,000 a piece or so in 3 months. I went, this is great. I need to learn everything about this I possibly can.
Why didn't you continue? Why did you ever quit doing that if you're doing so well?
That's a great question. So they asked me to be the sales manager, and so I did. Set up all the systems and processes, grew that business the next year. We had a parting of ways. I'll try not to be too negative if I can avoid it, but we just had a disagreement on how things were going to go from there in the future. So I started my own. I did pretty well with that. 5 million the first year, 15, 20 million the second year, and then kept kind of doing those kind of numbers for a little while. That would be 2000, 2001, 2, 3, and 4.
Here in Texas?
It was here, St. Louis, Chantilly, Virginia.
Wow.
And
those
so
are solid numbers.
Yeah, we did okay. We had a lot of fun. But remember the part where I said I wasn't all that smart? There was things I made mistakes in. I didn't.
What was your biggest mistake those years?
The biggest mistake I made? Not being on top of my finances. Not understanding the value of decisions being made from measurements and numbers. We are all really good at this stuff, right? Like,
because the sales number were there. So what was missing?
Missing was accountability. holding my financial team accountable.
Did you get in financial troubles then?
Oh yeah, big time, big time.
So you're telling me you can make 10, 15 million and be broke?
I wouldn't call it broke, but definitely concerned. And really, the problem wasn't so much the money side of things, it's what it did to our company. Because what really happened is we had a bookkeeper misappropriate funds to the tune of about $500,000 plus. And there was a partnership.
Was it stolen or just mismanaged?
Embezzled, I'll use that word. I try to use that word if I can. So it's not something I talk a whole lot about. It's a little embarrassing, to be honest with you.
Why? How?
You would think as a business person, you'd be on top of that stuff.
It happens all the time. I mean, you can't. I always tell people that if someone wants to steal from you, they'll figure out a way. And that's why we actually have a conversation last week in my business. I said, in my business, I don't, they all know what checks are. Sometimes checks are signed. You might as well leave signed checks on top of the table, because if you don't, the reality is they find a way how to steal it. So don't be embarrassed. There's nothing to. It's their character.
Disappointed, maybe, is a better word.
Do you charge? Charge?
Disappointed that I wasn't a better leader. That's really what it came down to. I tend to, anytime something bad happens, I tend to have this introspective part where I ask why. Why did this happen? And part of it was we weren't all on the same page when it came to ownership of the business. Because there was three of us. There's two partners, myself and the production lead guy. We're even partners, and this bookkeeper was a smaller partner. And she wanted equality. And she came to us and said so. But it was 3 years after we had started the business, and so we explained what that would be to become, equal partner. And she didn't agree. And we just kind of blew it off, didn't think too much about it.
And she found a way.
And she found a way she wanted to make sure she was equal. and so it was disappointing, not because of what it did financially. It was more disappointing because it broke valuable relationships and friendships. That was the disappointing part.
What happened to that company?
That company disbanded.
Nothing to show for it, just close it.
Yeah, we had to close it down. I'm the sales and marketing guy. That's my job. It's what I'm good at. It's what I know I'm good at. I'm also the visionary type guy. I see the big things. We're going to be gigantic and all that other good stuff. My partner was the production guy, the devil in the details guy. Implementer. He is usually really on top of stuff. And then we had the financial person. And so we all trusted each other without any kind of checks and balances to do our thing. Well, production did their thing very well. We did our thing very well in sales and marketing. Our whole goal was break those two. Break production, break finance, outsell anything they can ever do. And my partner, the production guy, his name's Jim Miller, amazing. Best production manager I've ever seen. And that relationship was broken because of that. Wow. So that was the disappointing deal there.
Recently I have Facebook argument with one of the companies out there, person who represents the company. And they have major issues with ex-sales reps. So about 8 to 10 sales guys claiming they owe them money, don't pay, like very common problem in the industry, especially in the storm chasing industry. And as I'm arguing with this person, he made this statement, and I want to read it to you about that company. I'm not going to point the company, I'm not going to bring you in, but I just want your opinion on it. He said, that company isn't a perfect company, and there aren't any in this industry. That's what he literally said. He's like, nobody's perfect, everybody makes mistakes, but we're not scammers, we're not. And I'm sitting there, I can come up with a big list of good companies that don't have. I mean, I've been doing it for 7 years. Sales guys don't sue me. Do we go over invoices and do we argue and maybe have disputes every once in a while? But to take it to judge, to courts, that's a different level. Would you agree with this statement? There aren't any roofing businesses out there. And what would you say percentage today in 2020 of good players versus bad players? How many is legit, good, solid companies who are doing it somewhat right? And what's the percentage of bad guys, shadiness, stuff like that? How bad is it in your opinion?
Well, interesting that you actually asked this question. First off, you used the word perfect. And I don't think anything is perfect. There's a lot of excellent companies, though. A lot of companies that do pay their people, pay them on time. And like you said, we have our disagreements over an invoice and that kind of stuff, but it never gets to that point because culturally they're set up to not get to that place. As far as this industry, about 6 years ago, this whole coaching thing for me wasn't really planned to be where we're at today. I was just going to help a couple of companies. And as things started to grow and we were really helping people do well, I sat up one day and I had this whiteboard out there. And I put on that whiteboard, I said, dark side, light side of the force. Like that was kind of how I was thinking. Hey, these are the kind of guys that seem to be on the dark side. And there's these guys over here, they're on the light side. And I had this group in the middle that was the gray. I didn't know. It's kind of one way or the other. And as far as percentages go, I think they've changed in the last 7 years. Hopefully we've had a little bit to do with that, but guys like you have had a lot to do with that. Several people have. That now that this light is kind of being shown on our industry, you can't get away with it. Whether it's Facebook and social media kind of blowing people up. I think so.
There's only so many people you can block.
Yeah.
And there's so many groups you can get kicked out before you start like, okay, if I'm going to continue, they're going to kick me from all the groups.
Well, that's when we coach our companies, we tell them, don't just follow our group and don't just follow your thing. Go watch what other contractors do. Go get involved in the different groups. Get a broad perspective of things because we tend to be a little too blinders on in our businesses and we don't see what's happening out there. We don't see how we can improve.
I want to hear the number. What's the percentage? 80-20, 70-30, 50-50?
I think it's closer to 50-50 today. 50-50. Yeah, I think people are trying to do it right. And it might even be better than that. I think anytime you hear the negative, it tends to blow up and be very loud and kind of obnoxious. And people are all about listening to that. And so maybe that percentage is quite a bit smaller than 50-50. It might be 80-20 the other way. Excellent, good companies, 80, and not so great 20. But they're the ones we hear about. They're the ones that give us a bad name. They're the ones that hurt what we do with consumers. And it's really like we look at that as our responsibility to empower people to understand that you can actually do this very well, do it right, and still make even more money than you did when you did it wrong. That's the crazy thing. Like serving people the right way, doing things the right way. People want to work with folks like that. It's contagious. In our own business, we don't worry about the money. We don't ever look at the bottom line or any of that kind of stuff. Now, I do sit down with my financial person once a month and do my stuff like I'm supposed to, but it's not a goal-oriented monies-wise. It's goal-oriented contractors that we can help, consumers that we can impact. Those type of things is what we're about. And when we focus there on this serving side of things, the benefit that's returned is greater than I could have ever imagined. But it's not what it's focused on. I'm not really worried about that.
It's funny you said it. Most people don't realize, like, Roofing Insight is the same thing. I've built this for like last 3 years, and we have 4 employees. We're growing fast, but you will never hear me setting up even sales goals. Like, nobody knows, like, what's the sales goals. We don't start Mondays, like how many tickets we have to sell, how many subscriptions we have to sell. You just do what you do. We don't even advertise. We teach, the word spreads, and that's one of the things I've noticed about you. If you go in and there's not many companies with a 5-star rating, true 5-star rating. You read your reviews, you read the Roofing Insights reviews, you see what people say, and that's what matters. That's what's so rewarding. It's like, it's not the sales, it's not to become the biggest sales coach or the biggest roofing company, but to have that reputation and maintain it, I mean, that's pure gold.
The only thing you can't have taken away from you is your reputation.
Sure.
That's it. Your word is all you got.
And would you agree that a lot of roofers, especially in the storm chasing industry, and the reason I keep bringing them, because for me, there's more mistakes in the storm chasing, and the reason it's easy to explain because they don't have time to think. They're hot hats. Like, something happens and they just go, and then I feel like reputation getting compromised a lot of times. It's just doing stuff half-ass, and then what they don't realize is that ABC bill that you're not gonna pay and walk away. That sales rep you're gonna screw because, we didn't have agreement. So you promised mountain, and then at the end it's like, you're just not gonna pay because you're not making money. That's gonna chase you in your own town, in the next storm. People don't realize that.
It catches up with you.
Doing everything right every single time is crucial. And I feel like when we chase those opportunities, we sweep it under the rug and we hope that people will forgive us. They never do. If you shake someone's hand and you didn't deliver, you ruin your reputation every single time.
The whole promise silver, deliver gold thing, right? We always tried to undersell. We always tried to be very clear about, yeah, it's going to be messy. It's going to be loud. We might crack a piece of sheetrock because it's fragile. And like we told them the worst that it could possibly be. So whenever we finished, it was a great experience every time. I think a lot of guys try to paint a better picture that it's just going to be this simple, easy, no big deal thing. But it's construction, major construction on somebody's home. And if you don't set the right expectations, you tend up setting yourself up for failure.
You live currently in Texas. Obviously, you work with a lot of local companies. I hear this a lot from Texas guys. Dmitry, you don't understand. What you teach does not work in Texas. It's so competitive. And I'm like, I can take you on a tour in my own building. There's 5 roofing companies here. Every market is competitive. Colorado is competitive. Chicago is competitive. Minneapolis is competitive. What's the most competitive markets or best markets in your opinion? And is there such a thing as too competitive market?
I don't think there's any such thing as too competitive a market. If you're thinking about getting into one of those markets, you need to really have a great strategy. You need to understand what you're getting into. As far as like the most competitive markets, Dallas, Denver, Chicago. Those are probably the 3 most competitive markets that I know of. Florida as a state is pretty competitive, but because of their licensing procedures and stuff like that, kind of limits the amount of competition because it's pretty intense. But Texas, Dallas, anybody saying, hey, because we coach a lot of clients, and they're like, hey, I want to go open an office in Dallas. I say, well, you need to understand what you're getting into. You either have to go in there small and say, hey, I'm going to be very strategic about this, small, get a few jobs underneath my belt, work for a year or 2, get some reputation going, or you have to go really big. It's got to be loud. And there's no in between. You can't just like dip your toe in and hope everything's going to be okay. And you have to understand you're going to get a battle. You're going to get. I'll tell you one other town that's an extremely competitive town. Most people wouldn't even know it. Lubbock, Texas. It's like they have a wall up around that city. Like these contractors, they are all together. You can't even join their association or anything until you've been there for 2 years. You got to live in Lubbock to be a member. Like they're intense.
What advice would you give if I'm a brand new contractor? Let's say I move to the United States and I can pick any place, any city. I want to become a roofing contractor. What city would you recommend and what advice would you give me? As far as location, I'm like, Jim, I want to be a roofing contractor. Where do I go?
I would probably, well, first thing I'd ask you is what's your goal? What's your dream? What are you trying to achieve? Like that's more important than anything else, beyond finances.
I want to run $5 million a year company.
$5 million a year company. Do you want to be, like in the hubbub of things? Like it's a metropolitan. It's the happening place.
I want a restaurant with the live music in them.
Restaurants with live music in them. Okay. Austin, Texas could be a good solution. Nashville, Tennessee could be a good. Why? And I would ask you, like, why the music? Why is that important?
I like options at night.
I agree.
I don't like to be bored.
That's this whole coaching thing that is all about like you and what you're really after. Not the 5 million, but what's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? What's this dream that's driving all this in the first place?
So as a coach, you sell in dreams?
The idea is to help you achieve your dreams, because if I do, it's kind of like Zig Ziglar, I get to achieve mine, which is to help as many people understand that there's a process to all this stuff as possible. I want to impact not just 100 or 1,000. I want to impact millions of people.
So Austin, Texas, that's what I'm getting from you. Any other cities? Any other?
Like if it was all about money, like if that's what you're asking me, if it's all about money and that's the only focus, somewhere in the Northeast, the DC area, Maryland, you've got some pretty decent restrictions in place. You got to take a test and got to get all that stuff done, so that limits the competition. The amount that you can make as far as per square and stuff like that is fantastic. And I don't think that competition is quite as stiff as it is in some of those other areas that were mentioned before. And you have a heavy population center. I mean, houses everywhere. If you've ever been in the Northeast, it's like there's hardly any grass. It's just people everywhere. There's pretty parts, but we worked in Chantilly, Virginia, and it was probably the best opportunity, which is just outside of DC.
Well, how much money does someone need to start a roofing business?
Depends on what they want to do.
You answer like politician.
Well, it is. It's so much about you. It's not so much about like these hard and firm like stats and numbers and metrics.
Sure. If I want to open in DC, like you recommended me, how much money do I need? 10,000, 20, 50, 100?
If you're going to do it right, I would say you would probably have to at least have 50,000. You gotta invest in an office. If you're going to do this right, now, could somebody start in their basement and do all that? Say absolutely could. But if you're going to do it right, you're going to present yourself as a place that's professional. You want people to come to work for you. Create a culture, the marketing that you need to do, the wrapping and branding and that kind of stuff. At least 50 grand to get started, and probably more like 100.
Okay. To do it right. What's the best net profit margins you see these days in the roofing industry?
We have a couple of clients that are in that 20% range. Yeah, net, which is excellent.
On what kind of annual volume?
10, 15 million. 10, 15. Yeah, they do very well, very streamlined.
I feel like it goes, once you get to that level, your overhead goes down, so.
Yeah, there's a death valley there between 3 to 5 million on the low side and 10, 12 million. That number in between is, we call it death valley, because that's where you're heavily extended overhead-wise and really kind of getting the same return on it because you're growing. You're in this process of growing. But once you hit that 12 to 15, somewhere in there, you have the structure in place, and now it's just putting people into that machine.
Now it's a numbers game. Speaking of what's the perfect size of the business?
Yeah, you're going to get one of those political answers from me. The perfect
for net profit. Let's just look at the net profit. So we have 3, 5 million. We have 7, 8. We have 12. We have 20. Where can you make the most money?
One-man show.
One-man show. 3, 4, 5.
Even $1 million. And you think about it. If I'm a one-man show, I don't have anybody else I'm paying. I go out and sell $1 million. I'm going to have a super high net profit. Sure. As soon as I start to involve other people, we call it the profit pie. We have this thing. It's like, hey, there's a pie, and as soon as you start engaging other people,
I would agree with you. So, like, if you're doing 1 or 2 million by yourself, you're profitable. Now, if you're running 3 to 5 million, now you have that overhead, and like you're sharing that pie, and you're getting paid very little because you're not doing everything. You're sharing a lot. But then to get to that 20, it's like that 10, 12 million. Now it's reverse. Oh, yeah. You cannot do it by yourself. Now you're sharing a lot, and you're making, like, to make 20. I mean, even 20% on $1 million is hard. Oh, yeah. Even if you do it by yourself, I would say you probably can. I mean, if you're excellent, you can do 30% on $1 million. Probably, yeah, I agree. But then if you do 12 million, you can do 20. I mean,
the number we see consistently is somewhere between 10 and 15%. That's about what somebody should expect. If you set your systems up right, you really think about your strategy, you're super streamlined, you can get that number up. But we see 10 to 15, just depending on what they're going after, if they're making a push.
So what's the perfect size company?
Perfect size for me? 25 million. That was the number. Yeah, that was the number for us. Our overhead was streamlined enough that we could create enough volume to pump into that and hit some pretty decent profit margins.
So one more time, I want to meet Jim Johnson as a contractor. Mm-hmm. Why would I hire you as a contractor? And tell me how you ran your show. Like 25 million, great. Tell me about work-life balance of you as a contractor, and what did you like as a contractor?
So from a contractor's perspective, not coaching stuff, why would you want to meet me?
Or do business with you?
Do business with me as a customer? Yeah. Because we believed in our purpose. Our purpose was to make it easy. That was the whole goal. And that wasn't just for the consumer. That was for everybody that worked for us, the insurance companies we worked with, the vendors we worked with. We wanted to get this down to where it was so easy to work with us and that you benefited from that you would put us first. You would put us first in line. So vendors, suppliers, Those type of folks always wanted to work with us first because we made it easy. If you came to work for us, we made your onboarding so easy that you didn't want to go anywhere else. We made your work that you needed to do so process-oriented, so clear that there wasn't all this guesswork that you see in our industry. So we took all that out of it, which allowed us more time to engage and build relationships and connect with our people at a different level. So I think that would probably be a pretty good reason.
So now you're writing a book, working on a business versus working in the business. Were you working in the business or on your business when you were a contractor?
So when you first start, you're working in your business. It just is the deal, right? Like you talked about work-life balance. And like I tell everybody, there's no such thing as, like when you hear the word balance, I think most people think of like a teeter-totter and they think, or scales of justice, and they think it's balanced like this. There's balance, but sometimes it's like this, and sometimes it's like this. It's still balanced, it's just balanced this way. And when you're first starting your business, I mean, I was investing 80% of my waking hours into work and to put together something great, knowing that if I did that, I would start to buy that time back in the future. And it worked out pretty good as far as, yes. As a matter of fact, I had a heart attack when I was 29 years old because I worked too hard. And created a machine that we were able to put people into that created more sales than we could manage, and it broke our processes. And by breaking those processes, you end up with more hours to work, and when you have more hours to work, somebody's ultimately responsible, and that was me. And so I was out of balance at that point. I learned a pretty hard lesson there, and that's why I reduced that number down to 20, 25 million, somewhere in there, because that was easily manageable. We could streamline it, and I had good people, good leaders. That was the whole key, is like growing those guys. I think we miss that a lot as business owners. We tend to be a little bit of control freaks and stuff like that. But this concept of building champions is what we were always about, is, you know, who's got potential here? Let's encourage that, so empower that, start to give them some tasks that they can do, see how they do with it, and then grow them up as a leader. And they might be a salesperson that becomes a team leader that becomes a sales manager that becomes a general manager, and then on to, you know, regional manager, national manager, stuff like that.
Did you achieve that working on the business and when business runs itself without your, you know, you being in it at all?
It can be, yes.
Did you achieve it in your business?
In my business, no. I like to work. And so there's a part of me that wants to be involved and do that kind of stuff. As I put more leaders in place, I was able to step back from the day-to-day operations. Like I wasn't out selling and doing any of that kind of stuff. I wasn't in the field training people. I did position myself to work on the business, creating relationships with an insurance company or a real estate company, you know, kind of the bigger thought processes and strategies for that business. Got involved in the whole triage program back in the day before it was called First Choice, which I don't even know if they're still around anymore. But it was taking on those bigger challenges and really kind of asking tougher questions about our business, and seeing that more as where my role was, knowing that I had these leaders in place that would do what we asked of them because they wanted to, not because they were forced or measured or anything like that, but our culture encouraged it.
I have to ask this question. Did you make more money as a contractor or as a sales coach?
Oh, way more money as a contractor. That's easy. That's an easy question. People ask me that all the time. You hear these sayings like, those who can't do coach. You've heard that statement before. I get this, well, why are you doing this if you made so much money at the roofing thing?
So why? What's the answer?
I want to give back. I took for a long time. I was, like I said, I wasn't always a great person. And I literally had an epiphany moment it's been about 16 years now, sitting on the front step of my house and going, this is not what it's all about. I mean, I got a big house, all this property, all these cars, and all that. I had all that stuff. And I was like, what else do I need to get to feel better about myself? And it broke down into a prayer moment, to be honest with you. And I started praying, and the only word I heard, I didn't hear a voice or anything. I know people do and say they do, but I just had this word resonating in me, serve. And so that's why I do what I do. And the challenge was gone. Like, I did it. I accomplished what I was after. And as soon as that challenge is gone, it's a new thing. So that's where AccuLinks kind of came in. And there was a new challenge there, and that was a blast doing that. And we got it to where I was originally set to get it, and the challenge was gone for me. And I was kind of going to retire. And when I left AccuLinks, I got all these phone calls about come be a manager, come be a GM, come be a partner, come be like help me with that kind of stuff. I said, how about I just like hop on the phone with you and we'll get you some advice. And I took off from there.
What people don't understand is I actually heard yesterday a preacher talking about it. When you give, people don't realize what actually happens to you. You will never cry or like have that emotion. Like, you know, let's say you go and buy a brand new like Ferrari. You don't go like, oh, like I bought a Ferrari. But you can go into the restaurant and tip waiter $100 and see what happens to the waiter. You know, like it fulfills you. You literally can like drop a cry, like even if you're growing mad, like try to give someone, like people ask me all the time the same thing, like why you do what you do. Like sometimes I can surprise, you know, follower, like give away, you know, something. Like when you give, it's way more. I tell people all the time, like I can go and sign $100,000 contract in my business. I have no emotions, nothing. I can make a video and reading comments on it gives me chills, goosebumps. You're like, man, like was it that impactful? It's rewarding. It's a drug. Like giving is a drug, and it makes you truly happy. Where consuming, you know, how much can you consume? You know, what's the limit? You know, like bigger house. I mean, I live in a $500,000 house. What's the next? $1 million house? $2 million house? Am I happy in my $500,000 house? Like what's enough?
Yeah, you look pretty happy. You know, you have your posts with your family and stuff. It's not about things. It really isn't. It's about people. It's about, you know, my hope is at some point there's maybe a bit of legacy in this, that it wasn't even about Jim Johnson. It was about helping people see that they can have an impact. They can do something different. We just give them the tools to do it with. I think a lot of people don't realize that in this business there's an order to things. We actually teach this order. It's actually what the book is about. And once you kind of click to seeing that order of how those all line up together, then it's just doing them. But how can you teach that to somebody else? That's the goal. Like, how can you teach somebody else that? How can you pass that on to your people? Because everybody that's working for you, they're like on a bus. We call it the vehicle, right? They're on a bus, and think of it as like transportation. Some get on, and then they go a little ways, and some get off, and some stay on longer, some stay on all the way till the end. But while they're on your bus, your whole job is to make them a better person, whether it's the end goal to be with you the whole way, or their purpose and passions about something else. The more you invest into them that way, the further your business is going to go. It's truly amazing to watch these companies that we coach when they buy into it, because I'll be honest, not all of them buy into it. A lot of them are more bought into, hey, give me the sales pitch and sales presentation, give me the training stuff, you know, that kind of stuff, the marketing stuff, and all that, what we call operational stuff. The ones that truly do good are the ones that go, give me that leadership stuff, give me that culture stuff, and they buy into it, and they believe in it, and they do it.
It's not sexy. Leadership is not sexy. It's like, oh, be a better leader. You know, what does that mean? It's a cliche, you know?
Well, I think pride gets in the way. I think there's a bit of pride that gets in the way, that people go.
Well, everybody wants business in a box. It's like, tell me what's like, I'll pay you and you work for me. Like, I'll give, you know, like I need leads, here's money. I don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to recruit people. I want you to recruit for me. And roofers they like to throw money at the problem thinking it's going to get away. Where leadership is, I have to do something. I have to deal with the guy in the mirror. I have to deal with the drinking problem. I have to deal with my managing style. I have to deal with all of those. That's hard. Throwing money, like everybody wants to be an investor. Everybody wants to be next Warren Buffett. It's like, oh, who's the best Facebook marketer? Here, take it, take care of it. Who's the best recruiter? Here, take care of it.
Yeah, it's funny that you put it that way, because it is. That's what this is an investment, but it's investment in yourself.
How does someone become a good leader?
It's a lot of learning. There's a history of it, that you don't become a leader overnight. But anybody can learn it that has the will to learn it. It's not, you're not born with it. God doesn't touch you and go, hey, you're going to be a great.
I'm going to argue with this with you a little bit. So I've heard you talk about good leaders, bad leaders. I believe once you're a leader, you're a leader. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. Okay, I'm a born leader. You know, obviously I have to lead all my siblings in the wars and, you know, fighting my parents when needed, and you know, like I was a leader, right? But here's the problem with the leaders. Leaders can be, you know, if you don't have that moral compass, like I see in the roofing industry too, you can be a leader, you can lead in a battle, and you can lead in sales. But I see also the same guys, they go later at night and they, you know, they do drugs, for example. So for me, like back in the day when I was, you know, 16, I was leader in the church, right? And then when I was 18, if you drink with me, if I want to drink, you're drinking because I'm a leader. I'll make you drink. So I will bring you to church as a leader, but when I want you, like when I'm corrupt, I will also do some stuff that you can't resist. I'll lead you other way. And I see in our industry, guys, just like Wolf of Wall Street, right? So he was a leader, but look what happened to him. He got a jail time. I hope he's a better leader now. But the thing is, it's not a black and white. It's like the same person, the same leader. He can be leader here and leader here. And the thing is, there's third, how would I say it? There's third element to it. Where do you lead? Do you lead everywhere? Or, you know, guys like Dave Ramsey, they're so like right. There's right and there's wrong. You can't do this, you cannot do this. In our industry, we have leaders who just do anything you want, sky is the limit, you know, drugs, hookers, whatever, just go do anything. And we have those leaders today, and they're, I can't call them bad leaders because I see good out of them. But technically, if you can be a bad leader, you are a bad leader.
Oh, I don't look at it in terms of good or bad.
Sure.
I look at it in terms of great or poor.
Okay.
Good or bad puts a moral aspect to it, but we can all think of leaders that had a lot, because the definition of a leader is somebody that can get people to follow them in a course or path, right? And we can think of a lot of people that had a lot of people follow them that weren't necessarily doing good things in our perspective. But whoever was following them may have thought they were good things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I don't look at it as good or evil. I look at it as great or poor. Your ability to lead is either great or poor. Now, personality-wise, because now we're talking personality.
What's the poor leader like?
A poor leader is somebody that doesn't have anybody follow them. I mean,
but see, that's where I don't agree. Like,
well,
if you follow the leader, like, and he can lead you in a bad direction.
Let's talk.
He cannot be poor because he has that attention, and that's what happens a lot in sports. You know, that's why we unfollow people. Like Mike Tyson, he has a big following. Like Rock, he has a big following. And that when those guys just churn and say, okay, I'm not gonna do, I mean, there's so many examples. Or like, what was the famous cyclist?
So that's motive.
Famous cyclist, like he's number one. Give me the
Armstrong.
name. Armstrong, right? So he Lance Armstrong, great leader. Who follows him now? He led his entire team in drugs. Well,
so let's talk about that, because I think we're actually on the same page more than you think. Great and poor being ability or skill defined, okay, not moral insight or anything like that. We were talking about personalities of leaders now. And so when you talk personality of leader, you actually have 4 things that are going to determine that. You have results over here, and you have people over here. If you're more focused towards results and numbers, and you're kind of on this side. And if you like people and you want to be around people, you're about serving people, you're kind of over here. And then you have motive and nature. So think like a DISC test. Are you familiar with DISC?
Yes.
So it's like a DISC test. We're trying to figure out the personality of this person. And motive is kind of this achievement aspect of things that you're after, or nature is more how you're wired, like internally. So think internal for nature, external for motive. And that external thing can be this. It could be the snap of a finger, something changes, and the people that follow you completely change because the personality that you are purveying out there changes. And we actually break it up. We break it up into 4 different kind of descriptions of those folks. We have this hero one here.
So can you help me find mine, like style of leader?
Actually can. So I can ask you a couple questions. We can figure it out. Are you more after results and numbers, and you want to like get this? Everything's a measurement or a metric and that kind of stuff. Like, and I got tasks and they got to get done.
Yes.
Or am I more? So we're here. We're not even about. Okay. So not about. And people can be a part of the equation, but which one's
What's here?
which one's bigger? Okay.
What's people?
People is so your goal is to see people work together as a team, work with you to achieve your goals, help them achieve their goals. You like to be the life of the party, you want to hang out and that kind of stuff. You're very people-oriented.
Definitely here. Definitely.
Results guy. I kind of figured that, like, if I was going to analyze you before we started, I would have said this. And then we have the motive and the nature side of things. So thinking of it from that point of view, are you more driven by, I am absolutely about trying to achieve something, I'm trying to accomplish something, and like that's way more important to me? Or are you more internally after self-fulfillment? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so, which one of those two?
A little bit lost. It's hard for me because I'm not money driven. So for me, like I'm very content. Content is the word.
Yeah.
Like I just want to make sure I'm taken care of, like family taken, and then after that, I want to make sure that I do what's right. That's why I always wanted to be a teacher. Like not money driven, but at the same time, I'm goal and results driven. So I want to be happy. I will never compromise who I am. Like I will never do something. You know, if you ask me like, hey, Dmitry, we can rob a bank and get away with $500 million. Like I would never, like I will never sleep at night, know how I got it. Like, and I have many opportunities to do something wrong. So the thing is, I don't know. Like I will never compromise what's good. It's probably changes over time. But if I know it's wrong, I don't care what the reward is. It never can be never get compromised.
Right.
And
but you're either trying to achieve something.
I always try to achieve, absolutely. So for me, the goal is like I'm very competitive. So no matter what I touch, I have to be number one. Like right now I'm going after Home Advisor. Like who's number one? Home Advisor. They're going down, I'm going up. Back in the day, it was roofing business. Like who's the biggest in town? They're going down, I'm going up. But it wasn't how much money they make. It wasn't. Like it just like I just can't be second.
So achievement is the thing.
Yes.
Okay. So in the description of that, I'm going to break it down all the ones except for the one where you sit, and we'll probably have a little discussion about that too, I would bet.
Sure.
So we got this hero over here. The hero is on this side. He's about the people, and he's about accomplishing something big. He's over here trying to make that happen. Then you have the democratic leader. That democratic leader is more about his internal nature, is wired that way. He wants to help people. He wants team, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the democratic guy. Then you have the autocratic guy over here. He's like about me and what I want to get done, and my way or the highway type of feel is his thing, and he's results oriented, not people oriented. And then we have the one up here, and we call it the villain, but we don't want you to have that as like a negative connotation. Sure. Because sometimes the villain's the good guy. You think about it, Mother Teresa, right? Nobody would ever probably think of her as a villain, but to the people in the areas of the world that she was working, she was a villain. She was working in areas that didn't believe in Christianity and what that was all about. And
how about someone like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk?
Steve Jobs, villain. Is a villain autocrat. So you have usually a dual personality. You have like villain autocrat or autocrat villain. Very rarely do they go crossways. So very rarely do you have a hero autocrat, which is what I am. I'm a hero, but I'm still a little bit more about me on my nature, like how I am because it's the hardest thing to change. I constantly have to put things in front of me to be mindful of putting my people's goals as important as my own. It's hard. So it's how we look at it.
Interesting.
Some people revel in the idea of being the villain. They're like okay with it, like that's a cool thing, and it actually isn't a bad thing.
Well, for me, let me interrupt. So for me, it's like I always go for the biggest problem to solve, and I build a team around. So I take all the people around with me. Like I'm not micromanager, so I'll build a team to achieve the goals. Like for example, let's say I want to build a home advisor. I understand I have to build a team of 500 people to get there, but for me it's like I go after the hardest jobs that no one wants. Like nobody wants to do it. Like nobody wants to call out scammers, right? And like how we do it, like how we confront, how we expose them. It's not me. There's team behind it, and we're all having fun around it. But we have a mission. Like that's good for the industry. We all love it. Someone have to do it. It's very controversial. We get.
You're kind of a villain of the, like if you think about it, you're a villain to those folks, right?
Exactly.
Like, You're not a big fan.
But the mission is, it's not about me though. So I don't do it because I like it as much. I do it because people need it. Like what really fuels me, it's not me achieving anything. It's like it's a fuel. It's people begging for it. Like when you see the biggest need, the biggest problem, people like, can you help me? Like, hey Dmitry, expose this guy. Look what's happening here. People comment to you is like, talk about this, do this. When you see something so wrong, you want to go and fix it. But now when you do that, you want to achieve it. You want to be Elon Musk. Elon Musk just goes in, is like, okay, here's the problem,
Right.
and I'm gonna fix it. And no matter what, he's gonna fix it. So I'm the same way, like Elon Musk. Like I go after biggest problem, and no matter what, I'm gonna fix it.
I'm a little different. I see problems, like whatever those problems are, and they look like puzzles to me.
You're too nice.
I've got this puzzle, and I got to. Is it possible to be too nice?
Yes.
I hope not.
Nice guys don't last. And I'll explain why I think you're too nice. Yeah, I think you are too nice, and I do think there is such a thing to be too nice of a guy. I mean, I don't think you have to be soft or pushed over, but I feel like nice guys, they don't like confrontation. They don't like to stand their ground when they could. And as a leader, I feel like we owe it to our audience to share where we stand in it. So we become nice guys. They're politically correct. They don't want to offend anyone. They want to be friends with everyone. And I feel like that's wrong personally, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of right and wrongs, and standing with a problem, standing your your position sometimes will help. You can't be friends with all people, but I remember recently I watched Fox News, a movie about Fox News, and when they just started Fox News, they have this boardroom, and the question was, who is our audience? And they're like, well, everyone. He's like, no, your audience is not everyone. Your audience is conservative audience. They can have all, so if it's 50-50, CNN and everybody else, they can have all of it, like other stuff. We're gonna dominate this, and I agree with that. So for me, I can be the only guy who's doing what I'm doing because nobody's else willing to do it. I'm okay being not nice, not politically correct. But look at our president. You know what I mean? He's definitely not a nice guy. But the thing is, people following him for that. I mean, I love how he's draining the swamp and cleaning it and saying how it is, and like, you will be in jail kind of stuff, because the things he says should have been said. Or he could be politically correct, and we will be like, okay, like.
He's just another one of the guys, right?
Yes.
So to qualify that a little bit, there probably is a bit of belief out there that I'm too nice. I am not here to throw my opinion or judgments on any other person because I don't feel it's my place.
Sure.
Now, when it comes to coaching, you can ask our clients. I'm not nice. I'm hard. I work hard. I've been a coach for a little over 27 years in sports and now in business. And I believe that when people are pushed, people reach their potential. When people are challenged, they reach their potential. When you lay down the law on certain things, people reach their potential. So in the coaching aspect, I'm not. By my actions, so that's how I hope I'm perceived, is by my actions. What that does is it aligns me with a certain group of contractors, a certain group of people that go, all right, that guy is a good fit for me. I'm not
always attract people like us.
Yeah,
100%
I'm probably not attracting the larger group of who our contractor base is. That's not what I'm after.
Same here.
I'm after people that want to put the work and effort into building a great business. That's what I'm after. And they have to understand that it is work. It isn't easy. There is no silver bullet, business in a box, as you put it. This business is your business and nobody else's business. What you want to do is get somebody else's way of doing things, and you didn't do anything. You created nothing. Where's your fulfillment in that? And you're also not unique, which makes you a commodity. And if you're a commodity, you can't charge what you're worth. So why would you even follow that path in the first place? And so we challenge people pretty hard in that area. But I'm not going to go out there and judge another person that I haven't walked in his shoes. It's difficult. I haven't been there.
By the way, my favorite quote by Trump is, "If you don't have a brand, you're a commodity."
Yeah. I use the word discernment instead of judgment. If I discern that that's somebody I don't really want to be associated with or around, I'm not going to say much about it at all. I'm just not going to be around it. I'm going to avoid it because it really, like, if it's something that I can't bring my wife to, I ain't going to it. Just not going to be involved in it. And I hope my actions speak for that.
Well, the reason I even, I started with I have a lot of nice guys in this industry, and I'm not going to mention any names in this video, and this is not what this interview is all about, but I've seen some really, really bad players, like really bad. Like everybody knows who they are, like pattern, like bad history, work history in the past. Today they're on the stage. Everybody knows who they are, but they have so many reputable people around them. And one-on-one, if I ask you, what do you think about that? Like, answer is always like, I don't like that guy. Like, but why you're there? Like, and there's one person in the industry I've never heard anything positive. Like, no one around him, no vendors, no tenants, nobody ever says anything nice. But everybody's still around that person, and so he is a leader. We're all leaders. And what's happening is, like, what I'm afraid of is Hollywood problem, like Weinstein. Like everybody knew for 20 years what was happening in Hollywood. Now it's all like, like abusing girls, pedophilia, all of those issues raising up. Why is this happening? Well, because leaders in Hollywood, they were not doing anything. People who could speak up, they were not doing anything. Everybody was politically correct. Everybody was nice. Everybody had your position. Well, if I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? And now, we have comedians calling them out like in a harsh way, and they get backlash. And I love it. I'm like, finally, someone goes on the stage and not afraid during Oscar say what needs to be said. And that's what I'm afraid of, like happening in the roofing industry, because look at Joshua Waxman. He has guys, top-ranked people around him who've done business with him, who've seen that he's scamming people. Nobody said anything about it. So Dmitry comes out, calls him out, and everybody's like, yeah, this is a joke. He should not be in business. Where have you been a year ago before he scammed 100 people? You know what I mean? It's like, see something, say something.
Oh, it's a role you play, and you're very good at it. You are. You're really good at it.
But it's a hard role.
It is a hard role.
It's hard.
I got a lot of respect for it. But you mentioned, like, this whoever it was you were mentioning.
Sure.
I'm going to bet I wasn't one of those leaders around them. Okay. I'm hoping that my actions speak louder than words. And I have a pretty good inclination of who you're referring to, but I don't do that thing. I don't go to that thing. And I'm really and truthfully, it's getting more and more of that, not less and less of that. Sure. Events that are in Vegas, I just don't do. I don't want to be there.
Well, Expo this year is in Vegas. Are you going to be there?
Got you.
No.
You, come on, it's Roofing Expo. You can't miss that.
I've missed it before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One of the things from this whole COVID thing that I found out is I don't need that stuff. We have done just fine, if not better, through all this. It's a huge expense to go to some of those things, and not a lot of value. Like, you go and listen to people talk, and you may meet people at a booth, and you may have even heard something that was super valuable. But you didn't write it down. You didn't take it back. You didn't internalize it. You didn't do anything with it. And it seems to be this repeating thing all the time. And we don't want to be those people. As a matter of fact, we got a pretty cool idea for RoofCon of how we're going to make each one of those interactions impactful. Because I think that's what every interaction should be. It should be impactful and powerful. You should share something that changes somebody's life. If you're not there to do that, you shouldn't be there in the first place.
You agree?
You agree.
Was that not nice enough?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Why we have so many bad marketers? Like they're like on the rise. Is it because roofers are too nice and we just ready to hire first person calls us? Why it's epidemic of bad marketers?
There's an epidemic of bad roofers.
Really?
The barrier of entry is what it comes down to. Anytime you have an industry where you have a bunch of, I don't know, bad players, whatever you want to call that, it's because of barrier to entry. I mean, come on, to be a roofer, I got a truck and a hammer, I'm a roofer. There's no school, there's no business class, there's none of that kind of stuff. And same for these marketers. I go watch a couple of YouTube channels and I'm a marketer. I know how to run Facebook and do a Facebook ad and do stuff like that. And it's like, all right, so this guy, he sold me this packet, right? There's $1,000. I'm gonna go through his marketing school. I'm gonna learn everything I need to know about marketing from that $1,000, and I'm gonna go get a bunch of customers. And they also know that there's money in this industry. We do well. And so because they know there's money here, they go after that industry. I see some other ones like real estate, doctors, lawyers, dentists. Marketers, same problem in those, because lots of money, low barrier of entry and skill set can take advantage of that, especially in marketing.
Let's talk about non-compete agreements. Are they enforceable? Everybody has them, but let's face it, we are growing our own competition within our own companies, whether it's sales rep, production manager, whoever you hire today. It's not a rocket science. Anybody can run a roofing business. You have them sign that non-compete. Tomorrow they go start their own show. What you gonna do as a business owner? Can you really go after a non-compete in a roofing business?
Why would you have a non-compete in the first place?
Good question. That's what I want to discuss with you.
I wouldn't have one and haven't had them. And the reason for that is, first off, if somebody wants to leave me, I need to look at myself first. Like, what happened? Why is that the case? Because I wanted to make this such a great place to help them achieve their goals. But maybe that was their goal. Maybe their goal was to be in business. And so if we dig into that, and invest in connection and relationship with each person that works for us and say, truthfully, what's your goal? What are you really after? And somebody says to me, hey, I want to own a business. Awesome. I want to give you some great advice. I want to help you get there. I want to work with you to help you achieve that, because if I do that with that guy, I'm going to repeat a lot more people like me, people that are trying to do it right, people that are trying to serve the consumer. And I want those people out there, because if I put those people out there, it'll run the other guys out of the industry. I'm all good with competing with people that do it right. Make the playing field level, we're good to go.
Okay, so you don't recommend non-competes? They're not enforceable in your
I haven't
opinion?
seen any that are enforceable. It's state of Texas is a right to work state. You can have a non-compete all you want. Illinois is also a right to work state. Wisconsin, Minnesota.
What does it mean, right to work?
Right to work means that if I disengage with you as an employer, I have a right to do what it is that I'm good at, and I happen to be good at that, so you can't stop me from working in my only skill set. And so those are those right to work states.
What's your take on another epidemic in the industry where business owners have all these disputes with their sales guys? Because the pattern is this: business owner always have a story how sales guy did not do what he was supposed to do, and now, especially if he quits. My phone is full of stories now after a few recent exposures. And people look at me like a Dmitry collection agency, like Dmitry help me collect with this builder. So usually if you quit, if you're the sales rep, good luck collecting, because for the business owner it's like, okay, I'm gonna take your IQ links, log in, kick you out from the system. Now what? Why we have, is it the greed? What's factor, what are the factors here?
First off, I think greed is the underlying problem with our entire human race right now, like in general. So let's just start there. The reason that we're dealing with that is because, for lack of a better term, we're lazy.
Are you talking about sales guys being lazy?
No, I'm talking owners. I'm talking owners. You think about it, getting into this business, usually you're good at a couple of things. You're good at selling, you're good at marketing, or you're good at putting it on. One of those three things is what makes you kind of get into this industry, and you see the dollar signs. So when you combine those things and you don't do anything else, you set yourself up for failure, because you didn't do what really needed to be done. You didn't need to make sure that your leadership was where it needed to be, your culture was where it needed to be, accountability measures, processes, systems, expectations, job descriptions, all that stuff has to be done from day one whenever you bring somebody new into the equation, because if it's set up right, there are none of those disputes. You don't have them. They don't exist. There's policies, procedures, a handbook, accountability, all of that. Everybody's on the same page from day one.
But what's usually happening is you come work for me. I'm like, sky's the limit, Jim. You can earn as much as you possibly can. Just go sell. Now that's what I never understood. You bring me, let's say, $1 million property. So you sold it, you say, like, here's the job. I mean, it's a value. And then you quit 2 weeks later. And I'm like, well, he quit. Like, I'm going to pocket this $100,000. Exactly. But, well, he didn't produce it. And they just, instead of settling maybe for 0.5%, like what I usually do in my business is, I don't want to be involved in any of those transactions. I just re-signed to the other rep, and I connect the two. I said, you guys figure out what's fair. You don't want to finish it. He needs to finish it. He doesn't want to work for free. Let's see, what's fair? 4%? 5%?
I would start earlier. With that. Like when you hire somebody, it says what the exit is.
And we do, but you know how sales guys look at that. They just don't see it. They see that they sign, and the sales guys can be unreasonable too.
That's what I mean about being clear about it. So we say you leave, there's going to be a split, or you're specific about it.
But a lot of times people don't want to admit that they're not going to be able to be there. They're like, well, what is it? A couple phone calls. I'll do that. Well, you're not going to do that because you don't have email anymore. You don't have access to these things.
So part of those procedures is like, when you decide you're leaving, we take over the project, and because we took over the project, this is exactly what's going to happen. There isn't this option of I'll call them or I'll even, like you said you're leaving, you're done. We're going to pay you for this portion of your work that you did, and this is exactly what we're going to pay you. And I knew that day one.
Exactly, but the business owners, I mean, you see it. Would you agree the business owners take advantage of it?
Oh, they absolutely take advantage of it. I think some of it is even nefarious or like the truly villainous. Like they do it on purpose.
Like
in
a
order,
business model.
It's a business model.
If there's a pattern.
Bring them in, sign a bunch, roll them out, let's produce them, and I don't have to pay anybody. And that's.
Isn't it crazy? Sickening.
They should go to jail for it. Seriously.
Is it possible to enforce it? I mean, how would we send them to jail? Like, what would go to?
You want me to talk to the reps?
Well, I have few right now.
Yeah. So no, what I mean is like, do you want me to talk to the reps on this interview?
Yes.
So if you had an agreement with the contractor that you work for, that if you sold, you were going to get paid for this agreement that you guys signed, and they're not paying you, you take them to court, you will win. I know from experience.
Sure. And I see it all the time, but they don't want to do it. They are afraid to do it.
Why?
I tell you why. One is it's the same. I just did Facebook Live about it. It's the same problem as we have in a sexual misconduct with ladies. When woman gets raped, or man more powerful, right? Why does it take women decade or two to speak up about rape, or if someone sexually assaulted her 10 years ago? Because that business owner or that man is usually way more powerful. He's like a bully. They're sweet talkers. They know how to get you, and you feel like underdog. You feel too small. Like the same reason why parents get away with abusing their kids. Ask yourself why kid cannot go to school and talk to teachers. It's a society problem. It's a psychology 101. There's so many moving parts.
The wrong school. I talk to my teacher about it too.
But today, I'm thinking 20 years ago, I would do this or this, but why didn't you? Because business owners, they're also real good at psychology, reading people, and it's almost, here's the craziest part, if a woman get abused by a man several times, if she claims that man raped her and that man raped her, right? So 2 men, who will believe that woman? If a sales rep claims that 3 companies screwed him, you know better than I do that all 3 companies in this industry can be bad companies. But now that rep probably have better reputation too, because why did he go through 3 companies? Might be nothing to do with him. So a lot of times I think what's happening is sales rep look at themselves and they're like, what am I doing wrong here? Something is.
I can tell them. They're associating themselves with the wrong crowd. You think about that. And I'm probably getting a lot of trouble for this. Like
Insights you will not get in the email.
So the woman that gets raped multiple times, the sales rep that gets taken advantage of several times. I'm not saying that any of those things are right that are happening to them, but they need to investigate in themselves who are they associating with, what positions are they putting themselves in, what are they allowing that's putting that thing into their world, because you can't play victim. The victim is oftentimes something that you've done that you need to look in yourself in the mirror and go, you know what, I don't think I'm going to go out to the club tonight and hang out and have 15 shots and then, oh, wow, I made a mistake. Same thing. I'm not going to go to a company that doesn't set the expectations, doesn't have a written agreement with me, doesn't explain to me exactly how things are going to get paid, and then I can't talk to a couple of their reps and make sure that that's what's happening. Just like you talked about with marketers earlier. Yep. You said, hey, if you're going to be a marketer, give me 3 people that have done business with you. Do the same thing. Ask whenever you're in. I would have absolutely said, man, please. We actually encourage it. We told our reps to talk to these guys that were coming in, interviewing.
I feel like, here's what I feel like is going to happen in the next couple of years, and here at Roofing Insights, we're starting it. The reason we're start going after companies, like I feel like if we start getting these examples, if I go tomorrow and and I have an actual company right now, I'm doing it, I have 8 reps willing to come on camera, working for one company, okay? So if we expose one after another, make 2 examples, like Weinstein, you know, if you think about it, the first girl, it was hard for her to come forward. Once you go forward, first, others to follow. I feel like if I get on the camera, listen, I have guys right now, crews, they're afraid to come, they get screwed, but they're illegal. They're like, well, I'm illegal. So what? If you're a legal girl and you get raped, what? You're not gonna go to the police? You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna get away with it, but the same happening with the crews. We're begging them, come forward, and they wouldn't do it. Yeah. They get screwed. $3,000 for working crew is a lot of money, but they're afraid. Sales reps are afraid. I have one guy right now, he got screwed of $40,000. He said he had to sell his house. He sold his house because he couldn't meet his ends. And I'm begging him, like, dude, come on camera, let's talk about it. He's like, Dmitry, like, it might affect my lawsuit. I'm like, did you start it? He's like, no. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, if you're not gonna start it tomorrow, you will never start it. You already run your own business. Time goes against you. 3 years from now, it's gonna be like, well, why didn't you talk 3 years ago?
The only reason I would question why a guy wouldn't answer that question or be willing to hop on and talk about it is there's usually 2 sides of a story.
True, but you need to understand when you are about to, okay, who are you? You're the sales guy who sold $700,000. Who are you about to sue? Guy who runs $15 million Ponzi scheme. All right, try that. So it's people don't like. They're like you. They're nice guys. They don't like confrontation.
Well, I'll have confrontation over money and what's right.
Would you agree that $12 million bull in town, he's powerful, and it takes, I mean, you and me.
I'm right.
I agree 100%, and this is my advice, and I tell people all the time, it's not disparaging if it's true. You know, go on social media, go on camera, go on YouTube, as long as you're saying the truth. I get cease and desist right now for saying, hey, this guy is screwing his sales guys, and I got cease and desist. I'm like, okay, take me to court, and I already have 2 judgments against him, so he lost in court. His ex-sales reps sued him and won cases against him, okay? I'm like, okay, so you taking me to court for disparaging your name, fine. What do you think gonna happen when I'm gonna call witnesses, and when we're gonna pull your history with your ex-sales reps? So I said on camera that you're screwing your sales guys. Guess what? I have evidence of it. What do you think judge gonna say?
He's gonna lose, and I know what company you're talking about. It drives me crazy, the name of that company. It's just super funny. But a terrible thing, right? Like, this is something that's an epidemic. I think you will do something. I'm sitting here going, God, what if I was a contractor like that and I watched this interview with Jim Johnson, and Dmitry, man, am I starting to shake in my boots a little? Like, do I have all my stuff covered?
So you can be the next guy.
Yeah, and no, like the guys who are doing it right aren't worried. It's all the ones that are like, oh my goodness, like Dmitry's about to go after this now. Oh God, we better get this straight, and that's good.
We need to self-police ourselves because we know better than anyone who is good, who is bad, don't we? I mean, you know who is good, who is bad. I know who is good, who is bad. Everybody knows who is good. We're like Hollywood. We all know who is good, who is bad. We just need to start speaking.
I know
up.
who I would work with and who I wouldn't.
True.
That's how I better answer that question, because that guy may be good to somebody. I don't know. Like I'm not there every day. I don't get to see all that. I just know that based on these things that happen to me specifically, I don't want to be a part of that. And that's the way I approach it. And you know, if I'm asked a point blank question, I will answer it. I won't be too political. I'll just say that because of these reasons is why I wouldn't.
Do you see a problem with the amount of 1099s that we have in the industry? Everybody's 1099. No one have employees anymore.
We try to coach folks to not do that.
So you recommend employees?
Yeah, if you can. I think it's a better way of doing business. I think it shows more investment of you into them and them into you. You tend to retain people better. They have to understand that there could be a little bit of a difference in commission because of that, because we take on more cost for doing those, but it's absolutely achievable. Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely achievable.
What about crews? Is it possible to have crews?
It's possible. People do it. There's lots of companies out there.
1%?
It's a little more than that, but they do have their crews. And now in storm restoration, 1% for sure, but roofing in general, you know, lots of companies have their own crews. I would like to see it get to there. I think we'd be more professional. I think our crews would be better trained, safer. I have so much respect for what the crews do. It's unbelievable. It's backbreaking work. I've done it myself, and I don't want to do it for a lifetime. And I don't think we give those guys enough credit for what they do. So yeah, I could see it going that way. It is moving that direction. It's like steering the Titanic. It takes a little bit of turning to get it off of there, and hopefully we don't hit an iceberg first.
How does someone go from working in the business to working on the business?
Great question. Well, it's what happens to us. We start this business. We tend to bring in a couple of friends or family members, and we start to do okay, and we start to get some volume. And when we do, we get caught on like this hamster wheel. Because I didn't do any of the stuff up front that was really important. We're concentrating on sales, production, marketing, and recruiting and hiring. Concentrating in that area, so we're building up all this volume coming in. We don't have any structure or systems, accountability, expectations, anything like that. So what ends up happening to us is we put ourselves into a position of firefighter. Every problem that comes up is our problem because we don't have any documentation of any kind, other than maybe a contract here, and that's about it. With some forms and stuff like that, but there's no documentation of what's supposed to happen. There's no process. And so what you end up being is like the Google of contracting. And all anybody has to do is pull out their phone, type in a few numbers into their little search bar that's your cell number, and they can text you a question, give you a phone call, that kind of stuff. And once you start answering those questions, you now entitle everybody to continue that. Oh, well, he had that answer. I'll keep asking. And all of a sudden, you're just overwhelmed by questions all the time. You're overwhelmed by problems in production. You're overwhelmed by unhappy homeowners because you didn't have any systems and processes. And so now you're always behind.
So what's the first step? Like, here's what I always hear. Like when I talk to a coach, and there's a lot of people out there try to sell you a course, try to scale your business to next level. And everybody says the same thing: process, procedures, like words. And I believe like average roofer was like, but where do I start? What's the first thing? Like if I just recognize myself, you explaining that person, what the first thing should I do today to like first step from going in to on?
The first step is so I'll give them to you all in a row. How's that? Will that clarify? Okay. So there's 12 disciplines.
12, okay.
You have 2 sets.
You're already overwhelmed.
I'm sorry. You have 2 sets. You have operational disciplines and you have foundational disciplines. Operational are all the ones we know. Okay. And this is the one where you're kind of directing me on this question is which one of those things should I do? Should I do more marketing? Should I do some more hiring? Should I do all that stuff? So those in order, I'm going to do those first. Marketing, sales, production, technology, training, recruiting, hiring, onboarding. So those 6 things are the operational side of our business. And that's where we focus. That's what we do all the time. But we don't look at this foundational side of our business, and process is just one little piece of that. And so process, while important, is not the most important thing.
What's the most important?
The most important thing is leadership, absolutely. If you're not a good leader, you'll never run a great company. You should stop trying until you learn how to become a great leader. It's one of the hardest conversations we have in our, because we do a contractor assessment. You can hop on our website, take an assessment, kind of identifies where those weaknesses are. And then we get on a free call with them and we talk about it. And if a leader's one of them, we have to talk about that. Because if that leader's not going to take ownership and do what they need to do to build this dream business that they're after, we're wasting our time and he's wasting money. And I don't want to work with anybody that's going to waste my time. And
would you agree with the statement my teacher in university used to say, people who didn't learn how to follow instructions will never be able to lead other people. So for example, if let's say you're a student and I'm telling you what to do and you refuse, whether it's in church, whether it's in school, you just that rebel. You rebel, you don't like follow rules. Would you agree that those people cannot lead others because you never obey your parents, you never obey your pastor, you never listen to your teacher, and now you want to run a business and you want people follow you? Would you agree that personality probably will never be able to lead people because they're rebels themselves?
they won't be a great leader. They could be a poor one, but they won't be a great one. You can't coach people if you're not coachable. Like, that's how we look at it. We for every 10 contractors that we look at, we work with about 2. Well, think about it. LeBron James, the guy's a multi-billionaire, and he's got a coach. And he doesn't just have a coach in basketball. He's got a coach in nutrition. He's got a coach in his business. He's got a coach in finance. All the greatest. Anybody that's great has had coaches. There is not one single person on this planet that has ever done it on their own. 100%. And whenever you think that that's how you're going to get it done, you kill your capacity. And capacity is the key to growing your business. If you're going to ask me one thing that I got to learn as an owner, how do I create more capacity? And the way you do that is by being a great leader, coaching other great leaders below you, that you rise to hopefully make better than you.
So what's our here other 6 basics?
So the foundational stuff. So foundational starts with leadership, culture, organization, and HR are number 3. You have accountability, process, and finance.
Nobody likes it. It's all boring stuff. We probably lost half of the audience right now.
It's the hard work. And anything great, there's hard work. It just is. I wish I could get more people to understand it, but that's not who my client is. My client is the one that actually understands what it takes to build a true and real business. There's no school for this out there.
That's boring. What I want to know is, like, how do I get more leads? How do I get, you know what I mean? Like, that's what roofers ask. Nobody calls you and say, well, I want to build a better culture. I want to become a better leader.
Yeah, we don't get that call. Our call, number 1 call, you want to know what our number 1 call is? Teach me how to hire more people. I want to grow my business. And let's walk it in order, okay? This is exactly how that phone conversation goes. They want to recruit, hire, onboard, right? That's what they're asking me. The last one, the very 12th one. And I'm like, that sounds great. How are you going to train them? And it gets really quiet. And they say, well, I'm going to put him with one of my guys, and he can ride along with them. He can, he'll show them the ropes.
80%
and I can,
of the industry is thrown out there.
Maybe get a day or 2 of training. Here you go. Let's see if you survive. Can you knock on a door? Woo, all right, exciting. And that's what their process for training is. But that's a long-term process to get a guy the experience he needs in order. And we use the concept time to money. How fast can I get you coming to work for me to money? Because if I can get you there faster than anybody else, you'll stay with me. You'll be a part of my business. And so we shorten that learning curve, and we break it into 3 different groups. We have what we call a quick start. So a quick start, 3 to 5 days, I'm going to have you out selling, and selling very well. Not just like, hey, I know a little bit, like role play, practice, ready to go. And then we have the next 90 days, which is going from a rookie to a pro. And so, hey, I want to be a pro in 90 days, pretty intense, every single day training. I don't think people train nearly enough in our industry. And then the ongoing training, at least once a week, is what we try to tell our clients. And that's to become an all-star or a Hall of Famer is what we're after. We use all that coaching stuff. But so that's training. Like, you want to recruit and hiring? Okay, you got to train people. How are you going to do that? Okay, now it's starting to make sense. Well, if you're going to train all these people, how are you going to produce all that? You're going to train all these people to go out and do the sales. How are you going to produce it all and keep it straight? Build even more raving fans that want to recruit and send people to you as customers. How are you going to do that and do it better than anybody else, to set yourself apart from everybody else, to put yourself positioned strategically and uniquely so you can charge what you're worth? How are you going to do that? Is it in writing? Do you know exactly what it is? Does everybody else know exactly what it is? Well, we get that a lot. And then it goes backwards from there. So production, how are you going to sell it all? Right? How are you going to sell exactly how are you going to sell it? Not just go give me a door pitch, knock on a door, can I do a free inspection and sign here, I'll help your insurance pay for it. There's way more to it, and especially if you want to actually be a salesperson, and especially if you don't want to have to deal with insurance companies. We've coached many companies that have a true belief that I don't have to work with the insurance companies anymore. And it's been awesome for them.
Wow. What's the reasonable pay to hire a coach, consultant for a startup company?
You're usually looking at investing anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000, just depending on where you want to be. Now, a startup company, like a little small guy,
36 to
you're looking at about $4,800 over 12 months. We would put you into a group coaching. Think of that as like a basic training.
That sounds cheap. I see so many guys out there charge like $5,000-$10,000 course, like buy this, like online. What do you think of those? Like they pop up all the time. I literally just found out like 3 new courses for roofers I didn't know exist.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, who are those guys? How long have they been doing it? And the same questions you ask with the marketers and the sales guys of the companies. Like, yeah, all that stuff, you should really check it out. And people should charge whatever they want to charge if they think the value's there and they believe in it, because that's what it takes to sell anything is absolute belief. We keep it low, multiple reasons. One is that I'm not in this for the money. I want to help as many people as I possibly can. And when they're small and they're starting out like that, they need to hop on a call once a week, just get some advice, get some help. You know, we're not going to dig into their business and break all those 12 strategies down. We're going to base what we teach them off of that. But if we can help them grow that first little bit, get up to, $2 or $3 million, because when you say as first start getting in business, I'm thinking $500,000, $1 million bucks, somewhere in there. Now, once he gets into that $2-3 million range, that's where we get in that one-on-one coaching. It gets pretty intensive, and you're looking 30 to 60,000, just depending on what you want to accomplish. Yeah. Most of our clients look at us as like another employee. My guy in Chicago, his name is Tom, with ProLine. He's been with us 4 years. Has grown his company tremendously.
How big are they now?
They're $8 million this year. He's shooting for $25 million next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
From 8 to 25.
He's going to go from 8 to 25.
Do you recommend that?
The group of people and leaders that he has been building for this last year, because that was what we did. We took a step to say, okay, pull back, build leaders, build structure, build systems. Now that we've kind of hit this decent number, if we're going to go big, we got to go fully big. We can't just kind of be in that middle ground. When you're in that middle ground, it gets painful. And he's realizing that this year it was painful at $8 million.
Name 1 or 2 reasons, top reasons why roofing companies fail.
We've talked about one a lot, leadership. This is the number 1 reason. Number 2 reason, the reason that I struggled was not knowing my finances and numbers. Not understanding.
Cash management.
Yeah, like, it's so funny. We go through these questions with our clients whenever we bring them on and onboard them. And we ask them, like, so what's your current cash flow? I've had one customer in 7 years be able to tell me the right number. They don't even know what cash flow means. Sure. Cash flow, if people on camera don't know what that means the money that you have available to you that's yours. In other words, you don't owe it to anybody else.
Would you agree that, not most, but there are a lot of big companies out there in our business that if you would take their sales out of the equation today, they would collapse because they're running Ponzi schemes, meaning they finance their everyday life. And I'm not saying like a lot of them, but there's big percentage, storm chasers or not. They rely on sales so much to sustain their lifestyle operations that sales cannot stop. You stop the sales, they're bankrupt.
Oh yeah, a huge percentage. They're selling to stay in business, not selling to be in business, and there's a big difference. If they stop selling, they'll go bankrupt. They'll default on their bills. They'll not be able to pay their reps. Their crews won't get paid. Like what they're selling today was stuff that they should have paid on way back here. And they don't see that. They don't understand work in progress. They don't understand cash flow. They don't understand balance sheet versus an income statement, which are all absolutely important things that I wish I would have invested more time in.
But they all have nice trucks. They're all really big on social media. You know, they're shiny. The boats are nice.
I call that perception rich, is what that is. You perceive me as being rich or successful. And I think the reason most people do that is self-esteem. It's a lack of self-esteem.
I think there's something else.
Well, greed is number one, but you're trying to purvey that you are something that you're not. And whenever you do that, it's low self-esteem.
So I remember in the university, we have one of the psychology teachers in the beginning of the, she was just getting started with us at the beginning of the year. She pointed out a girl in an auditorium, and the girl was wearing yellow, bright yellow top, whatever it was. She came to her in front of 65 people, and she said, "Do you have a money problem right now? Like you're struggling?" And she almost started crying. She's like, "Yes." She turned around, she said, "People who have money issues, they want to dress the brightest. That's the problem with the Russians, like back in Russia. Like you have, we grew up poor, and as a country, like if you look at Russia 20 years ago, you always put your best clothes on. Like everybody was broke. The economy collapsed, and there's no rich people. There's no like middle class. So people you see on the street, it's always like good jeans. Girls, can go throw garbage away. She's gonna put a dress on. You always want to present yourself. The same problem we have in the black community, shiny, bells, and broke people. They're trying to hide that they're broke by buying. It's a shopping therapy. Not only you feel better about yourself, but you also lying to other people. Like rich people don't have to prove anything. That's why Warren Buffett does not care about cars he drives. Now the contractor who does not know his financing or have a feeling he's broke, he's not lying, but it's a subconscious. It's there.
It's psychological.
It's very psychological. So like if you look at very conservative contractors, and I know them, like Apple Roofing, $25 million, like $6 million paid facility, the simplest guys. Why? Yeah. They don't have to prove anything to anyone. Now, the guy who is in financial trouble, that's the guy with the Rolex watch.
The big jacked up trucks.
He needs to. He's hiding. He have to hide.
And he's always putting on there, look at what I'm doing.
It's like, okay, nobody gonna find out. If I put this on today, people around, if I put nice clothes, people not gonna know that I bounced 3 checks yesterday as long as I dress nice. The biggest mistakes contractors make?
The ultimate biggest mistake that a contractor makes is not understanding the value of the people that work for them. They tend to look at them as dollar signs, people filling a seat, a number. And when you truly connect, and I mean in a relationship that's not one-sided, it's a win-win. We're both trying to get somewhere, and you're valuable to me and I'm valuable to you. And I look at it from this perspective of being a mentor and maybe a coach to you to help you achieve whatever you're after. I think the more contractors that do that, the better off they'll be in the end. I mean, there's all the technical stuff. They need to understand more about their finances, structure of their business, and how that all works. But that's really the big one, is not doing that connecting.
I feel like I already know this answer, but I'm still gonna ask you, and I don't want to answer to be leadership. Number one thing that all the successful roofing companies have in common?
It won't be leadership. It won't be leadership. Though while they do have great leaders, the ones that the most successful have in places is the right culture. It can be very different in each one. You take Avco, for example. They have such a culture of internal building of people. Like that's their culture. You take other companies like Crest, competitive. Like, man, they really want to go and get it. It's a cultural thing that will drive your business. I just got back from Chicago, met with 3 different contractors, the 2 that had great, strong culture, and both of theirs actually were faith-oriented, like a faithful type structure. They align themselves with the right people, and because the right people are aligned with them, they're all after the same purpose and mission together. Where the one that is like all about the sales and all about the money, they're the ones struggling the most, and they don't understand why. When you get after something, and you really have a purpose, and I mean truthfully have a purpose, like we're trying to accomplish something together, whether that's winning a championship in football and baseball and basketball, or not being the biggest roofer, although it could be that as a purpose, but think of it bigger than that. Think of it as something that we're going to change how this industry is, how this industry works. Maybe I'm going to change my community or my state or my region, my country, or even the world. I mean, I have guys that are, one of my favorites is a guy, he started the Golden Fund. And the reason he started is because his own nephew was dying of cancer. He talked to the doctor and he said, hey, I want to do something nice for this kid. What works to get these kids through this? He goes, well, you know, if they can have their pet. He goes, hey, he doesn't have a pet. He goes, can I go get one and bring it in? He's like, yeah. So he buys this golden retriever, brings it in, and helps this kid have a better experience before he passed. And it was powerful to him. It was important to him, and everybody was in on it. Everybody at the whole company was in on it. Now they buy golden retrievers for kids all over the world, all over the country. And they are so behind that. They're so behind that, they're all bought into that. When you get buy-in, man, you can do some powerful things.
Well, last question. Give one advice to a brand new contractor who just got his first license, don't know where to start, one-man show. So one advice.
Hasn't worked for anybody else before? He's just like, from scratch, I'm going to be a contractor? Watch Roofing Insights. You're going to get a lot of good information from that. Get in on all the free stuff you can first. Join every group on Facebook. Join every group on social media, whether that's Twitter. Follow all the Instagram. Like, follow all that stuff, the YouTube stuff. Like, get that kind of base knowledge, because you'll be able to pick out, your internal voice will tell you, yeah, that guy's saying the right thing, or maybe I should avoid that person. That'll get you a good start. And really invest in what you're doing in your business for that first year. Just keep it to you. Go sell jobs, go get some money behind you. Until you get to a point of where it hurts, don't hire anybody else. Get it right. Get happy customers, get those recommendations, get all that stuff that you need, because you can manage that, because you think about your communication circle as one. When you have a communication circle of 1, we know everything that's happening. When we have a communication circle of 3, now it's 3 times less likely for me to know exactly what's going on. When you build that to a communication circle of 50, imagine how many things are getting missed, skipped, not done. And so start slow to be fast, if that makes sense. Start slow, get it right, nail it down, and boom.
Slow is fast.
Mm-hmm. First year, I was all about doing 5 million. That was my number, because I had experience. I wasn't starting from scratch. 5 million. Second year, 25. Start slow, nail it all down, get it all right. Now that all the systems and processes are ready to go, boom, let's go.
Well, thank you so much, Jim.
Hey, man, that was awesome.